When Kentucky's wealthiest horse breeder desperately needs a wife who won't ask questions about his past, he receives a beautiful mute woman from New Orleans who communicates only through sign language and written notes. But she's not mute at all. She's hiding from the Sicilian Mafia who murdered her husband, knowing her distinctive voice would reveal her identity. What she doesn't know is that her new husband is actually a retired Mafia assassin who once worked for the very family hunting her. This is a story where silence speaks louder than words, where the hunters become the hunted, and where two people running from the same darkness must choose between exposing their secrets or losing their last chance at love. Hit that like button and subscribe to discover what happens when the predator falls in love with the prey. Billionaire's mute bride fakes disability to hide from Mafia who killed her husband. Dante Castellano stood in the morning mist of his Kentucky estate, watching his prized stallion, Thunder's Pride, race across the pasture like liquid shadow. At 43, he owned the most successful thoroughbred operation in America, his horses winning triple crowns and breaking records. But beneath the legitimate fortune lay bones of a darker past. 15 years as the Torrente family's most efficient killer before he'd bought his freedom with blood and gold. The advertisement for a wife had been born of necessity. The racing commission was asking questions about his background, his connections. A stable family man drew less scrutiny than a mysterious bachelor with no past before age 28. He'd been specific in his requirements. Successful businessman seeks quiet woman who values privacy over society. Physical challenges, no obstacle. Discretion, essential. The response that caught his attention came through an intermediary service. I am a young woman from New Orleans who cannot speak due to childhood trauma. I communicate through sign language and writing. I seek a peaceful life, far from the city's painful memories. Your emphasis on privacy appeals to someone who has learned that silence is often the safest response to life's cruelties. The photograph showed a stunning woman with dark hair, violet eyes, and delicate features that held a sadness words couldn't capture. Her beauty was ethereal, but it was the haunted quality in her eyes that spoke to him. The look of someone who'd seen too much, survived too much. What Dante didn't know was that Lucia Benedetti could speak perfectly well. Her voice, distinctively husky with a particular New Orleans Italian accent, would immediately identify her to the Torrente soldiers hunting her. They'd killed her husband Carlo for betraying the family, and she'd witnessed it, making her a loose end that needed cutting. The train arrived in Louisville on a September afternoon when the air smelled of horses and bourbon. Dante waited at the platform, unexpectedly nervous. He'd faced down rival families, survived assassination attempts, built a new life on the grave of his old one, but something about this mail-order bride arrangement unsettled him. When Lucia stepped onto the platform, Dante felt a recognition that went beyond physical attraction. She moved with the careful grace of someone always aware of their surroundings, always ready to run. Her eyes swept the platform in a pattern he recognized, checking exits, identifying threats, cataloging faces. She saw him and froze for a moment, something flashing in those violet eyes, fear, recognition, before she schooled her expression into polite neutrality. She approached and handed him a card. Mr. Castellano, I'm Lucia. Thank you for this opportunity. Dante studied her, noting the way she held herself, ready to flee, but trying to appear calm. He signed his response, grateful for the ASL he'd learned years ago for silent communication during jobs. Welcome, no need for thanks, we're helping each other. Her eyes widened slightly at his fluent signing. She signed back, you know ASL well. I had my reasons to learn. We all have our secrets. The drive to Castellano Farms took 2 hours through rolling bluegrass country. Lucia watched everything with intense attention, and Dante recognized the behavior. She was memorizing routes, planning escapes. He'd done the same when he first came to Kentucky. The estate sprawled across 5,000 acres, the main house a massive antebellum mansion he'd restored to its former glory. But Lucia's eyes went to the horses, dozens of them grazing in white-fenced pastures. She pulled out a notebook. They're magnificent, like living art. Do you know horses? She wrote carefully, my husband loved them. He taught me to ride. Your husband passed. Her hand trembled slightly. Murdered 2 years ago. Dante's blood chilled. The timeline matched. 2 years ago, Carlo Benedetti had been executed for stealing from the Torrente family. Dante had been offered the contract but had already retired. Someone else had done it, Messily he'd heard, and Carlo's wife had disappeared. He looked at this woman claiming to be mute, and pieces clicked into place. She was hiding, running, and she'd answered his ad because he'd promised privacy and asked no questions. "I'm sorry for your loss," he signed and meant it. The house staff greeted them warmly but carefully. Rosa, his housekeeper and the widow of one of his former targets, though she didn't know that immediately took to Lucia. "Oh dear, you're too thin. And those eyes, you've seen too much, haven't you? Well, you're safe here, Mr. Dante doesn't allow any trouble on his land." Lucia smiled and signed thank you, which Rosa didn't understand, but the sentiment was clear. That evening, Dante showed Lucia the suite he'd prepared, close enough to his for appearance, far enough for privacy. She studied it like a cage she might need to escape from. She wrote, "Why do you want a wife you can't talk to? Talking is overrated. Most people lie when they speak anyway. And writing is more honest. Harder to lie when you have to put thought to paper. Unless the biggest lie is what you don't write." Dante studied her, like why you're really running. Her hands stilled on the notebook. Then like why a horse breeder knows ASL like a professional. "Former military," he lied smoothly. "Special operations. Silence was survival. And now I raise horses and avoid questions about my past." "We're well matched then, both running from ghosts. Are your ghosts likely to follow you here?" Lucia's face went pale. "I hope not, but ghosts have a way of finding us, don't they?" "Not here. I protect what's mine." "I'm not yours. This is a business arrangement. You're under my protection. That makes you mine to keep safe." That night, Dante made calls to old contacts, careful to use burner phones and coded language. The word came back quickly. The Torrente family was indeed hunting Carlo Benedetti's widow. She'd witnessed the killing and disappeared with something valuable, though what no one knew. He found Lucia in the library at midnight, reading by firelight. She looked up when he entered, fear flashing before recognition. He signed "Can't sleep." She wrote "Nightmares. You. Ghosts like you said. Military ghost. The kind that bleed into everything else." She studied him for a long moment, then wrote, "You're not military." "What makes you say that?" "Military men have honor in their eyes even when haunted. You have skill. There's a difference." Dante sat across from her. "And what skill do you think I have? The kind that keeps people alive, or doesn't?" "You're very perceptive for someone focused on staying silent. Silence lets you observe, learn, survive. Is that why you don't speak survival?" Her hand trembled on the pen. "Speaking killed my husband, my testimony, my identification of his killers. If I'd stayed silent, he might still be alive." It was partially true, Dante knew. Carlo had been killed for skimming, but his wife's existence as a witness had sealed his fate. No loose ends was the rule. "That's not your fault," he signed. "Isn't it? I knew what he was, who he worked for. I should have stayed quiet." "The Torrente family." Lucia went rigid, the notebook falling from nerveless fingers. Her mouth opened in shock, and for a moment Dante thought she might actually speak. Instead, she signed frantically, "How do you know that name?" Dante picked up her notebook, handed it back gently. "I know many names. I told you I protect what's mine. That means knowing what threatens it." Lucia's hands shook as she wrote, "If you know about them, you know how dangerous." "I know exactly how dangerous. Carlo was your husband." She nodded, tears starting to fall. "They're hunting you." Another nod. "Because you witnessed his death." She hesitated, then wrote, "Because I have something they want." "What?" "Proof of their crimes. Carlo kept records, insurance. I grabbed them when I ran." Dante's mind raced. This was worse than he'd thought. The Trent family wouldn't stop until they recovered those records and eliminated the witness. "Where are the records?" "Safe, hidden. My only insurance." "Lucia, you need to trust me." She stood abruptly, signing, "Trust, I don't even know you. We're strangers bound by paper and necessity. We're two people running from the same darkness. You don't know my darkness." "Don't I?" Something in his tone made her freeze. He continued in sign. "New Orleans accent when you write. Certain phrases give it away. Married to a Torrente soldier. Witnessed a professional execution. You're Lucia Benedetti, and there's $1 million price on your head. Lucia backed toward the door, terror plain on her face. I'm not here to collect, Dante signed quickly. If I were you'd already be dead. Who are you? Someone who left that life behind. Someone who understands the weight of old sins. Your Mafia was. 15 years ago I walked away. Changed my name, built this life. But the past has long shadows. Dante Castellano, you're the ghost. Now it was Dante's turn to freeze. The ghost, his old nickname known only to family members and those about to die. How do you know that name? Lucia pulled out her notebook, writing with shaking hands. Carlo was obsessed with you, the enforcer who never missed, never failed, then vanished. He had theories about where you went. And he was right, wasn't he? You're here, the ghost became a horse breeder. That man is dead. No, he's standing in front of me. The question is, what does he want? Dante moved closer slowly, like approaching a spooked horse. He wants to keep you safe. He wants redemption for old sins. He paused, then signed the truth. He wants to protect the woman he's falling in love with. Lucia's violet eyes widened. She wrote, You don't know me. I know you're brave enough to run, smart enough to hide, strong enough to stay silent even when you want to scream. I know you're beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with your face. This is insane. Everything about us is insane. A reformed killer and a hunted witness pretending to be married. We are married. On paper. But Lucia, Dante touched her face gently. I want more than paper. She pulled back, signing, I can't. If they find me, they won't. I won't let them. You can't stop the entire Torrente family. Watch me. That night, Lucia's nightmare became reality. She woke to a hand over her mouth, a knife at her throat. Not Dante, a Torrente soldier named Marco she recognized. Hello, Mrs. Benedetti, he whispered. Or should I say, Mrs. Castellano. Imagine our surprise learning the ghost had surfaced. Lucia tried to scream, but his hand muffled her. Now you're going to tell me where Carlo's records are, or I start cutting pieces off. Suddenly, Marco's weight lifted. Lucia heard a crack, a gurgle, then silence. Dante stood over Marco's body, his hand steady despite what he'd just done. Are you hurt? He signed. Lucia shook her head, then suddenly spoke for the first time, Dante. Her voice was exactly as distinctive as she'd feared, husky musical with that specific New Orleans Italian blend that would identify her instantly to anyone who'd heard it. Behind you, she screamed. Dante spun, catching the second attacker's wrist, disarming him with movements that were pure muscle memory. The fight was brief, brutal, efficient. When it ended, two bodies lay still. There'll be more, Dante said. They know where you are now. I'm sorry, Bushi. Lucia whispered, her voice rough from disuse. I brought death to your door. Death was always at my door. You just gave me a reason to answer it. My voice is beautiful, like whiskey and smoke and midnight confessions. It'll get us killed. Then we'll die together. But first we'll live, really live. No more hiding, no more silence. Dante. He kissed her stopping words with touch. When they parted, both were breathless. I love you, he said simply. Not the silent girl, not the perfect bride, but you. Lucia Benedetti, widow witness woman, with a voice worth dying for. You're insane. I'm a reformed assassin who breeds horses and married a fake mute who's actually in witness protection. Sanity isn't really an option. Despite everything, Lucia laughed. The first time in 2 years. They had hours before the Torrente family sent more soldiers. Dante moved with the efficiency of his old life, but now with purpose beyond survival. Pack light, he told Lucia. Only essentials. Where will we go? First we get Carlo's records. Then we end this. End it how? The FBI has been trying to take down the Torrente family for decades. We give them what they need. They'll kill us both. They'll try. Lucia led him to a storage unit in Louisville where she'd hidden Carlo's evidence. Ledgers, recordings, photographs documenting 20 years of Torrente crimes. This is enough to destroy them, Dante said, reviewing the materials. Carlo died for this. Carlo died because he stole from them. But his death can mean something if this evidence saves others. They drove through the night to a safe house Dante maintained, one of several he'd established when he first ran. It was a cabin deep in the Tennessee mountains, defendable and isolated. "You've been preparing for this," Lucy observed. "I always knew they might find me. The ghost was too valuable to just let go." "But you got out." "I made a deal. One last job, then freedom." "What job?" Dante was quiet for a moment. "I was supposed to kill a federal judge. Instead, I warned him and disappeared." "You saved him." "I tried to balance the scales, didn't work. The family killed him anyway, just messier." "Judge Benedetti, Carlo's uncle." The pieces clicked for both of them. "That's why Carlo had the records," Lucia breathed. "He was gathering evidence to avenge his uncle. And that's why they killed him, not just for skimming, but for planning betrayal. We're finishing what he started. Together." They contacted the FBI through secure channels Dante had maintained. Special Agent Sarah Williams had been working the Torrente case for 10 years. "Mr. Castellano, or should I say Mr. Corsetti," she said when they met at a neutral location. "We've been looking for the ghost for 15 years. I'm retired." "Clearly, Mrs. Benedetti, we've been looking for you too." "I have what you need to destroy them," Lucia said, her voice growing stronger with each use. "And what do you want in return?" "Immunity for Dante," Lucia said immediately. "Full witness protection for both of us. He's killed on their orders. He was as much a victim as anyone. A boy recruited at 13, trained to kill before he could think. He deserves redemption." William studied them. "You're defending your husband's killer." "What?" "Mr. Corsetti, Castellano, was originally assigned to kill your husband. He refused. That's partly why they sent someone else." Lucia turned to Dante. "Is that true?" "I'd already fallen in love with you from surveillance photos. I couldn't kill the man you loved, so I walked away." "You gave up everything for someone you'd never met." "I gave up everything for the possibility of becoming someone who deserved you." Williams cleared her throat. "This is touching, but we need those records." Lucia handed over the evidence but kept copies. "Insurance. You protect us, you get everything. You betray us, it goes to the press." "You've learned well, Mrs. Benedetti." "I had good teachers, my husband and my new husband." The FBI raids happened simultaneously across 5 states. The entire Torrente hierarchy was arrested, their operations dismantled. Dante testified in closed sessions, his identity protected, but his information invaluable. Lucia testified too, her distinctive voice now a weapon against those who tried to silence it. Vincent Torrente himself was convicted on multiple counts, sentenced to life without parole. At his sentencing, he stared at Dante and Lucia. "The ghost and the widow, you deserve each other." "We do," Dante replied simply. With the Torrente family destroyed, Dante and Lucia returned to Kentucky, to the horses, and the life they'd built on lies that became truth. "We should renew our vows," Dante suggested one evening as they watched the sunset from the porch. "Now that we can be honest. What would we say I take you, former assassin, as my husband, and I take you, fake mute, as my wife?" They laughed, but there was truth in the humor. The renewal ceremony was small, just Rosa and a few trusted friends. The vows were unconventional. "I take you, Lucia, voice and silence, past and future witness to darkness and light. I take you, Dante, ghost and man protector, and protected proof that people can change." That night, Lucia spoke freely for the first time in 2 years, telling stories, laughing, singing. Dante listened like a man hearing music after deafness. "I love your voice," he said, "even though it nearly got us killed. Especially because of that. It's the voice that spoke my name when I needed to hear it. That warned me of danger. That defended me to the FBI. It's the voice that can identify me to any surviving Torrente allies. Then they'll have to go through me. The ghost protects what's his." I thought the ghost was dead. He is, but Dante Castellano, horse breeder and devoted husband, has some of his skills. They had 2 children in the following years. A boy named Carlo for the flawed man who tried to do right, and a girl named Voce Italian for voice because she represented her mother's freedom to speak. The children grew up on the horse farm learning to ride before they could properly walk. Never knowing their parents' dark history, until they were old enough to understand that people are more than their worst moments. Your mother saved me, Dante would tell them. Her silence taught me to listen. Her voice taught me to speak truth. Your father protected me, Lucia would add. His past gave him the skills to ensure our future. The horse lord and his mysterious mute bride, who turned out to be neither mute nor mysterious, but simply two people running from the same darkness toward each other. They'd proven that silence can be a shield, voice can be a weapon, and love can bloom even between predator and prey, when they realize they're both just trying to survive. Years later, when the children asked how their parents met, Dante and Lucia would share a look and say, through a newspaper ad and a series of beautiful lies that became the most important truths of our lives. That doesn't make sense, young Carla would protest. Love rarely does, Lucia would reply, her voice strong and clear. But it doesn't need to make sense to make a life worth living. In the end, they'd both found what they'd been seeking. Not just safety from the past, but a future worth having. The ghost had found peace, the witness had found protection, and together they'd built something neither had thought possible: a normal life, earned through blood and silence, and the courage to finally speak when it mattered most. The thoroughbreds still ran through Kentucky, bluegrass bloodlines, pure and documented. But the most important breeding was of trust from betrayal, love from fear, and honesty from necessary lies. The horse lord and his bride, proof that sometimes the best marriages begin with deception and end with truth, and that the most beautiful voices are the ones that have learned when to speak and when to let silence say everything.